Right. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm Swaru. I'm the marketing head at Steer World, and I'll be your host for today. I would like to first thank all the participants for attending this webinar on Integral, which we believe will be a game changer in the pharmaceutical industry, owing mainly due to its true continuous granulation technology. Before we begin the session, I would like to play a short video that gives a brief about Integral and its continuous granulator system. I request the participants to kindly ensure your audio is on at the bottom of your screen.
Technologies. Our advanced processes and platform technologies change the way medicines are made. The pharmaceutical industry faces a dire need to move from batch to continuous processes in order to safeguard from regulatory stricture disrupting the business. By using a self-contained, self-cleaning vessel that can transform the bulk material properties in a single step during a very short time interval, we are addressing the most pressing need of the industry in making optimized granules towards preparing the final dosage form. The manufacturing overheads, footprint, and the number of processing steps are vastly reduced, bringing in long-term sustainability and overall equipment effectiveness. There is greater energy efficiency and negligible waste management, leading to a greener process. Here is a brief description of the process in an integral granulator. Powder material is fed into the integral granulator either by weight or by volume, either as split feed, that is, individual components separately, or as a powder blend. The granulating liquid is pumped in separately for a wet granulation process. The material is mixed, wet masked or kneaded, heated or cooled, and simultaneously goes through a controlled process of agglomeration and deagglomeration. The granules thus formed exit the integral granulator through a pneumatic transfer system under negative pressure into a collector and either continuously or intermittently transfers directly to a blending step, typically not needing further milling.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Uh, Before we begin, just we'll go through some basic housekeeping rules. So today's session will span over 90 minutes, and this includes the question and answers at the end. But in the meanwhile, if any of the participants have any queries or comments, feel free to include that in the chat box, either during the course of the webinar or at the end. And our experts will answer them at the end of the session. And if we run out of time, we'll get back to you the answers offline. Also, we will be having few poll questions during the webinar. You will need to open the chat box to type in your answers. And now a brief about our speakers. So our speakers for today are Mr. Indu Bhushan and Mr. Rajesh Srinivasan. Indu, a master's graduate in pharmacy from Punjab University, brings over 30 years of rich experience in the pharmaceutical industry. Known for his passion for research and his esteemed reputation, he has led large, diverse teams of scientists and researchers successfully delivering complex projects. His achievements have earned him several accolades, including the prestigious Chairman's Excellence Award at Dr. Reddy's lab for advancing bioequivalent success in generic product development. Currently, as a CEO of Steer Life India, Indu is steering the company towards its vision of becoming a fully vertically integrated, globally recognized drug product manufacturer. He is also a co-inventor on over 50 patents and a co-author of numerous international research publications. Welcome, Indu. Our second speaker for today is Rajesh Srinivasan, a seasoned leader with over 28 years of experience across global organizations such as Thermax and GE. Throughout his career, Rajesh has held key leadership roles in after-sales services, product design, engineering management, cultural transformation, and innovation, contributing significantly to the organizational growth and success. An MBA graduate from IIM Bangalore and a chemical engineer from NIT Surathkal, Rajesh is also a Six Sigma Green Belt certified. His achievements include being a three-time recipient of the Outstanding Leader Award at GE Baker Hughes, holding two pending patents in energy systems, and leading major innovations in the energy sector. Currently, Rajesh serves as the Chief Development Officer at Steerworld, overseeing the food and pharma equipment divisions, where he plays a pivotal role in driving business growth and innovation. Thank you, Indu and Rajesh. We look
Thank you.
forward to a very insightful session on this revolutionary true continuous granulation technology of Integra. I now hand over to Mr. Indu to take over the session.
Thank you, Sarup, for the nice introduction. And I thank all the participants today for joining the webinar and giving us time. What would like to start is starting with the agenda. As Sarup said, both my colleague Rajesh and myself will be covering all the agenda items. I will cover about Steer journey and Steer life journey in brief, followed by explaining why continuous manufacturing is needed and industry perspective. At the same time, I will also give you a brief perspective of Integral features, the schematic and the differentiation, how it compares with other options currently available in the market. After that, Rajesh will talk mainly on the customer value proposition, a value to R&D, quality, and production. And finally, Rajesh will give you financial value proposition as well in his presentation. In between, we'll have poll question, as Sarup said, and poll will be opened by Sarup. It will be open to all, and I will invite everyone to participate in the poll and give your opinion, which will help us to build Integral much better in the future. In the end, I will also take care of case studies using Integral, and that will help you to understand how to use Integral for various applications. So when we started 10 years back, the journey of Integral, Ralph Waldo Emerson, the statement is very inspiring. We took a very unconventional path. When we see 10 years back, there were any case studies of wet granulation or melt granulation using twin screw or a screw for pharmaceutical application. We found, in fact, the people averse with listening anything which is high sharing for granulation. As we all know, granulation requires delicate balance of many energies, whether it is mechanical shear or temperature. However, we opted for unconventional path and we started working on twin screw for making a truly continuous granulation, which is today known as Integral. Coming to Steer global presence, Steer Group has 4 application development centers in India, Japan, China, and the US. We have 5 global offices, 2 in India, 1 in Japan, China, and USA. We have presence in 50 plus different countries. Our installation have gone there in last 30 years. and we have a group of 500 plus employees. Apart from that, we have several patents, more than 150 patents applied for in various stages, even multiple patent granted in terms of engineering component, processor design, and more recently, Sphere Life has also gone for product patent. As I said, 150 plus countries, more than 1,200 installation for polymer, plastic, and even pharmaceutical. We have sold more than 1 million element globally. Let us start with the Steer journey. Steer was founded by Dr. Babu Padmanabhan in 1993 at Bangalore. And thereafter, Steer introduced Omega extrusion system for plastic industry with a high free volume. And that was something revolutionary, not known at that time. Steer started building pharma machine, and our first installation for pharma application was in 2009, followed by development center, application development center, where we do every day lot of development, whether it is plastic or biopolymer or pharmaceutical and food. Today, we have two application development centers in India and one each in Japan, China, and in the US. In 2015, based on Dr. Babu's invention, Steer patented a lot of fractional loop elements, and that became a game changer, particularly in pharmaceutical application. 2016, Steer Life was born as a separate company, and therefore we started working on many different applications. By 2018, we came out with 4 different platform technology in the area of melt fusion, even extraneous granulation, which is related to effervescent product manufacturing, and finally integral. 2019, we in fact made our first commercial launch of effervescent product for a fixed dose combination product in pharmaceutical segment. 2020, during the COVID time, our first commercial installation and commissioning for a high volume product for pharmaceutical API, it was carried out. And last year, by the end of last year, we filed our first ANDA with the US for itravir, which is a difficult to develop product. So this gives you a brief perspective how Sphere evolved and how its venture in Sphere Life that got involved in life sciences particularly. Coming to why continuous process. In last 20 years, we have seen a lot of emphasis from regulator and industry for moving from batch to old, batch to continuous. And why batch to continuous? Because we have seen that in pharmaceutical industry, not much has happened in last 50 years, and batch process has remained stagnant. It occupies multiple steps. It is lengthy process and lot of large scale equipment, which is clumsy and very difficult to handle. This is a statement from US FDA, Saw Lee, as stated. On the other side, if you see Dr. Yoshihara Matsuda from PMDA is talking about there is nothing wrong with the batch, but there are something which is very difficult to achieve, can be achieved using continuous manufacturing. Therefore, adoption of continuous manufacturing allows something which is difficult otherwise by batch to achieve by a continuous processing system. Coming to a brief history, FDA started this initiative way back 15 years back. We all know FDA Novartis initiative at MIT. Dr. Janet Woodcock made a very strong statement why batch process is not being abandoned in favor of a more cleaner, flexible, and efficient continuous manufacturing. So it was a good platform where she invited industry researcher to collaborate. And there are many originator company joined, and one of them, Robert Mayer from Merck, sees that next 20 years is going to be a segment or a time where adoption on continuous manufacturing is going to give advantage to the industry in terms of both quality and the cost. On the other side, Marcus Plume from Novartis indicated that in a flow chemistry segment, we have a possibility of developing something which is very difficult to do in a batch reaction, such as handling of a dangerous compound, for example, hydrogenation. So these are examples in early days where industry expert emphasized the importance of continuous process. What we see today is a continuous process addresses not only unmet need of challenging working environment or quality environment. Rajesh will talk about the value proposition, where it also addresses challenging financial matter, particularly relevant for generic pharmaceutical manufacturing. So we are talking about Integral, which makes batch process, multiple batch steps in a single, truly continuous, all-in-one granulation system. So I'll give more information on the Integral as we progress. So we all know how a batch process works, particularly for a solid oral dosage form manufacturing. After dispensing, what we see in a typical granulation suite, binder is prepared, granulation is carried out either in fluid bed granulator or rapid mixer granulator. In dry granulation, we have compaction. Once the granulation is done, which is wet or melt, then it is required to be sized through a milling operation. Followed by, once the granules is sized to the requirement, we go for post-granulation blending for lubrication so that we are prepared for taking subsequent tablet compression. Followed by, if the product is coated, then today we have a batch, and even few companies have adopted continuous coating process. Packaging typically is a continuous process. So what we saw, the mainly granulation process today, if you see, it remains batch process and more so very, very subjective in nature. Now moving forward, what we see that Integral provides you a combination of many steps during the granulation process by a single step granulation system where you have ability to put binder in a continuous flow stream of solid particulate system. And we can use this for both as a wet granulation and the melt granulation. Today, if you see, there is hardly any continuous melt granulator. So Integral provides you ability to do both wet and melt in a continuous flow. Integral also helps in milling or sizing to a greater extent. However, as we all know, size of the granules depends on the size of the tablet. So the final sizing happens like in a batch process by milling, by integrating with a mill. The remaining process, what is there today, that can be integrated seamlessly with Integral so that the entire manufacturing stream becomes end-to-end continuous manufacturing. Look at the schematic of Integral system. This is the top view, which shows that we have a feeding zone, which is part of upstream solid feeding system. As we saw briefly in the beginning, Dr. Babu talking about it can be split feeding. It means there is no need of dispensing of material before feeding it. The dispensing of individual ingredient takes place in the feeder itself, which is loss in weight feeding system. You have a record of dispensing of each ingredient. Alternatively, what I have also seen that few companies preferring a pre-blending step where multiple ingredients are blended and fed as a single stream by loss in weight feeder, but the feeding stream remains single. Once powder enters in the processor, we have in the upstream a liquid feeding system which feeds both liquid either gravimetrically or volumetrically, and it remains in sync with the solid feed. So therefore, the recipe of both solid and liquid remains unaltered during the entire process. If you look at the various zones of uh, integral processing, it has multiple zones, and typically it is divided in 12 different barrels. And we have ability to further make modules of screw configuration, which is the heart of the system. And that is what is equipment processing zone, EPZ, we call, which is typically comprising of 12 barrels, each barrel having its independent control of temperature. And therefore, we have ability to carry out processing at various temperature ranging from room to 200 degrees Celsius, depending on the type of product needs. At the end, what we see is a discharge chute, which allows material to exit, followed by pneumatically conveying under a suction to collection. This is a small scale integral system. For a larger system, we have ability to condense moisture coming out from the processor and drying it subsequently and collecting it in a continuous way. So in typically lab environment, we collect material in a container which is static. However, for a large installation, for a large capacity integral, we have a way to keep the continuity till the mill by screw conveying and keeping the condensing system in front of the machine. Now, let us understand the differentiation from what is today available by other option, which is we believe is still a 20th century continuous twin screw. Twin screw gives you a continuity of stream. However, lack of control makes it 20th century. Let us talk about the various aspects. Typically, when we see particle size distribution of feed material, what we see most of them are less than 50 micron. And in an agglomeration process, we are required to produce a unimodal distribution of particle ranging from 150 micron to 750 micron. However, most of the time, traditional continuous twin screw provides a bimodal distribution, which is depicted on the right-hand side as a two modes. And apart from that, what we also see, because of lack of control on the shear, the granules produced are typically rod type or flaky type of structure, which is not suitable, which is not stable during the further downstream processes. I have observed many times these granules, because of the flaky nature and asymmetric morphology, they break during the subsequent downstream processes. These are all related to lack of process control. And another problem is because of the very long response time. Even if you try to control it by feedback mechanism, its response time is very slow because the residence time in a typical traditional continuous screw processor is almost 3 or 4 times more than what we have experienced with the integral. Part of the twin screw continuous processor integral is fractional lobe, which Steer invented early 2000. And we are using a lot of fractional lobe geometry, particularly for doing the work. Now, let me explain you what advantages we get because of fractional loop processing. In a typical 20th century bi-loop processor, there are a lot of hotspot, and hotspot is undesirable shear stress, which gets formed particularly when you are doing a processing at high throughput rate or a high temperature. This is bound to happen, and therefore you see a lot of non-uniformity in the porosity or density in the granules. On the other side, if you look at 21st century fractional loop processor, it eliminates those hot spots because of its unique geometry. And therefore, the granules look more symmetrical, much more uniform in size, and provides a unimodal particle size distribution. On the other side, dead zone, which is typically a part of running a process at low throughput rate. And when we are not able to run a process at high speed, then we carry a risk of creating lot of dead zone or where the mixing is not very efficient. These are the challenges related to traditional processor. Whereas integral processor has fractional loop and it can be run both at slow and high speed. And therefore, the biggest advantage using integral is we have an operational window which is quite wide, and therefore we have much more flexibility at steady state. Now moving on, let us compare integral with other available options for continuous technology. True quality by design. So Integral offers true quality by design because we are not depending on checking or monitoring of granules and therefore adjusting the processing parameter. We rely on the design of elements and design of the processor, which ensures product quality at a steady state from from one end to the other end of the processor. In terms of product quality, while we see other processor is able to keep good throughput, Integral is far superior. In fact, our Integral is able to produce from 1 kg to 1 ton per hour throughput. And these are all possible through the specially designed fractional loop in the processing zone. Apart from that, if you talk about continuous endpoint determination, since traditional processor of continuous processing relies on feedback mechanism, you need a PAT tool. On the other side, Integral has very good relation between the processing parameters and the end product quality or the granules quality. So therefore, with good monitoring of the processing variables, we have very good assurance of the granules quality, which is available all the time. We talk about Integral provides a seamless integration of granulation, drying, and sizing, which is typically not available in other processor. And Integral is unique in the sense it is all in one. All the steps, granulation, drying, and sizing, all these things happen in a single system of Integral. So therefore, you have one control for all the three steps. And as I explained earlier, hot sphere and dead zones, Integral minimizes those hot zone and dead spot. In terms of application, we have numerous case study, both in pharmaceutical and nutraceutical area. For example, we started applying Integral for high volume pharmaceutical, for example, metformin, paracetamol, and ibuprofen, all of them in immediate release form. Then we went for high doses API, tenofovir, naproxen, and lumefantrine artemether also for granulating those granules. And we have very good data available for these products. Some of the molecule which is low melting, for example, orlistat, we went for melt granulation. And we also use melt granulation as a tool for formulating many XR product or extended release product. For example, potassium chloride extended release product, mesalamine granules, which relies on stearic acid melting, and potassium chloride extended release product. So these are examples of how we can leverage integral capability in terms of processing different kinds of API for ER application. On the other side, if you look at nutraceutical, alpha lipoic acid granulation, which is a low melting, we could achieve 80% of ALA, which is stable and potent. And there are numerous vitamins which are available today in granulated form or even stabilized form. So we can think of multiple application both in pharmaceutical and nutraceutical. On the other side, we have interesting application even for herbal ingredient. And some of the products which we could very efficiently process was cinnamon, herbal powder for immune boost, papaya leaf, and garcinia. Typically, these herbal products are considered very challenging because of their inherent nature or variability. However, in our processor, we could produce it very efficiently, meeting all quality standards. One of the salient feature in herbal application is as Integral can involve higher temperature during the granulation, we see a significant reduction in microbial burden during the integral processing as well. So herbal manufacturing by integral, particularly at high temperature, allows reduction in microbiological burden. So here is a time for polling, and the question to all the participants is what, according to you, is delaying the industry from adopting to continuous granulation? I request Swaroop to open the poll. You are requested to answer your opinion in 2 to 3 words. There could be many reasons you might be having in mind. For example, mindset, or someone is not understanding the value proposition. Those things you may like to capture, but please feel free to provide your opinion in the chat. There is a chat box. You can provide your opinion on the chat box. Please go ahead, and the time given is 2 minutes. After that, we'll see based on how the response is, and we'll talk more about how STR can help you in addressing those needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have seen many responses here, and the dominant one is lack of awareness. Somebody is even talking about a fear of not getting approval and something related to how the approval is going to take place. I would like to point out that Steer Life has developed a product and filed its own application with ANDA. And in fact, what told you that FDA is always encouraging continuous processing and continuous manufacturing. Should not be any fear in mind to adopt this technology. In fact, there are many incentives associated with this adoption. Our own experience with using application this technology is, in fact, we were also a bit contemplative how FDA is going to perceive it in our first ANDA application. But despite those apprehension, we have not received even a single comment on the processing. That shows encouragement from the regulator, and therefore my view is until unless we adopt and present data, we will not be able to break that paradigm. And FDA and other ICH agencies has adopted a clear-cut guideline, and therefore now there is a path forward which is very clear for adoption. Now, the second question was related to difficult to clean. I would say it is clean in place. Yes, a screw may look difficult to clean, but you may go for multiple set of shaft, each specific to different product, and therefore you can avoid any breakdown time or changeover time between the product. So one way is to take care of screw cleaning outside the machine by cleaning it separately and dedicating each set for different product. We'll take other questions at the end, and if anything remains at the end, we'll be happy to connect over email. So over to Rajesh.
Thank you, Indu, for taking us through the technology and the way Steer has really developed the product over a period of time. And it's now time that the industry adopts this product. And therefore, I would like to present what is in it for the customer to adopt Integral. And some of these reasons that we have stated here are very clear. Integral has got a potential to grow the bottom line and the top line of your organization, especially if you are in solid oral dosage form where you are manufacturing in bulk. It straight away hits the bottom and top line exponentially, and we have got enough data to prove that to you. As Indu mentioned, Integral produces superior quality of granules in a while, in terms of porosity, in terms of uniformity, shape, and which reduces the compression power that you encounter in tableting eventually. Clearly, it came out as winners when we did a lot of trials and tests. One of the most important reasons is the third one why we believe we should adopt Integral is energy. So currently, the world is moving towards more efficient processes, harmonious processes with nature. Every industry is changing towards that, and pharma should not be an exception to that. I personally did a lot of work with calculating energy requirements between traditional processes versus Integral, and it's very clear that the current batch processes of manufacturing granules consumes quite a lot of energy in terms of power, water, air, steam, etc. Whereas with Integral, it substantially reduces, and we have done trials, we have done tests to prove that. So I would really urge people to look at energy as one of the key levers for you to change to continuous. That's one good benefit. Coming to footprint, so in current traditional processes, we have got quite bulky equipments, which industry is already conditioned to, and therefore it's not felt as a pain, and we are okay to live with that. But when we look at Integral replacing some of them, or when you're even going for a greenfield project, when you look at Integral system as a continuous granulating equipment and a system, it consumes almost half or even less than that of the space that you're currently consuming. Along with the space goes manpower and so many other processes. So definitely there will be a huge benefit for any company who would like to adopt to continuous manufacturing in terms of space and manpower. The fifth important point here is the quality control costs, right? In current batch manufacturing, there is this concept of batch rejections, which can happen because of inability to detect problems while the batch is running. So you can find a problem once the batch is completed, and therefore there is a risk of quality specifications not being met, and therefore you may have to run it through again, or you may have to discard the material, etc., which is completely avoided in Integral, because the rate at which the material processes through the Integral and the number of automation and sensing instruments that we have in Integral makes the problem detected as it happens. And since it's all CFR compliant, etc., real-time data is available for us to immediately catch the problem when it occurs, and therefore we eliminate the testing costs associated substantially. So these are some of the very, very obvious and clear benefits of why we should adopt Integral. So the value for customer or anybody who wants to get in Integral, we have divided into three distinct phases. One is the R&D set of people, R&D quality related value, then production operation, and then financial. So these three components are very important to be considered while we go for any new equipment, and some of these reasons have been outlined here. Integral granulation, through Integral granulation, you have very excellent temporal and spatial control of the product that's getting through, which means we have control over time and space. So as the granulation happens, we can vary a lot of parameters which are very much in our control, like speed, screw configuration, temperatures of heating, temperatures of cooling, agglomeration. All these parameters can be controlled at every step very easily in our processor, and therefore the desired product attribute can be obtained in a controllable manner in terms of time and space. So since it's a continuous process. Second, the energy transfer which happens as the agglomeration happens is very efficient here, because of the FLP usage of fractional lobe processor. We are minimizing the shear peaks or the pressure peaks as the material travels through the processor, and therefore the efficiency of the energy transfer is very, very, very high as compared to any bilobe or a traditional processing equipment. The third reason is the technology is very, very versatile, as Mr. Indu was explaining. In terms of application of the processor itself for transformation of material, it's very, very wide ranging. So the technology can be applied to polymer, to food, to pharma, and even within pharma, you saw at least three major verticals in which Integral is directly applied: pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals, herbals, and many more. And since it is a processing equipment, it is like having several batch reactors in small series steps. When we visualize continuous processing through a processor, I would urge to visualize it through a batch getting converted into a continuous through small steps, right? And therefore, whichever industry is going through a batch process currently can very well adopt to continuous process. And we are seeing this increasing trend currently happening, especially in food sector, in oil and gas, petrochemicals, etc. This is very, very well known. Whereas in pharma, it is taking a little more time to adopt, but there is an obvious advantage of shifting into continuous. The other important element here is the cleaning. I think one of the questions came in the poll was it's difficult to clean. We would take you through some other material in which we say the cleaning process in our system is extremely, extremely efficient, and it's a self-wiping and self-cleaning technology that we have got. So you will not have even a trace of material left when the processing is done, and we want to change over to another formulation. There's very, very, very minimal intervention required in terms of cleaning. So that's not a problem at all in Integral technology. And then there's a stratifying is possible, which is again a very important virtue for Integral, where it's stratified continuous stream. So you'll be able to divide and see where the issues occur or where the processing occur in a very, very microbial manner. And therefore, it gives us more controllability on the process itself. So there are clear value additions for the R&D and the quality people who are watching this. Now, as Indu spoke about granules, right? It's all about now we are talking about granules done on a continuous basis and what happens to the quality of the granules. And some of our tests which we have done in the past, this is one representative sample of hundreds of tests that we would have done. As you can see on the left-hand side, what you see is the granule shape and size of a traditional bilobe processor using twin screw process, whereas the right-hand side is the granules that you are obtaining through a fractional lobe processor. So in terms of the shape, the size, and the uniformity, the integral processor produces a superior shape of the granule and also the uniformity and the size. And as we can see in the left-hand side graph, which is the D50 particle size distribution using a twin screw granulator with a bilobe processor and integral with the FLP, you can clearly see the difference that the D50 values are much better for a fractional lobe processor than a bilobe. And these are data that we have created after we have done several experiments and tests. Coming to the porosity, which is another important parameter of a granule. So through a mercury test, we have ascertained how the porosity of an integral generated granule compares itself to the porosity of a bilobe. So these parameters very clearly indicated to us that the porosity of an integral generated granules are much better off than that of a bilobe traditional element. So for example, the skeletal density, which is an indicative of an indirect indication of the porosity, is higher in case of an integral generated granules versus a bilobe one. And as you can clearly see, 70% is the porosity which can be achieved through an integral for a micron size of 420 to 250, which is a tested data that we have got. So porosity effectively means better compressibility in the downstream and better, lesser energy consumption, more uniformity, better friability of the granules, as all of us know. So these are some of the points that are key for us to remember in terms of process dynamics across a wide range of throughput. As Indu mentioned, the integral has got a capability range currently from certain grams per hour up to even 1 ton per hour in terms of scalability and in terms of continuous process. So for the entire range, we have a very good process dynamics, which is a dynamic steady state that we are able to achieve by the processor. The symmetry of granules we saw earlier, it's much more symmetric, much more spherical, and much more uniform as the granules are getting formed in the integral, which is quality by design. So we don't have to actually control it at every stage. By design of the processor, design of the elements, design of the control parameters itself, we are able to achieve the quality of granules. And similarly, the pore diameter, skeletal density, control on weight uniformity and friability. So we have done tests with friability of tablets, which Indu will present during the case studies. Clearly, integral granules are coming out superior, and integral tablets made out of integral granules for several molecules have come out to be far superior than traditional processes. Now let's go on to, apart from it also, there are several other value that the R&D person, the quality person will be able to feel when they actually run the equipment and see the granules. But we'll move on to some of the production operation issues, which people do anticipate. Okay, this is a new technology, this is a new thing. So what are the issues coming out of production, and what are the value that we'll see from this equipment? So this diagram shows a typical overview of an integral system overall, as Indu has already shown, but I've just included a section on the conditioning which Indu touched, which is important after the integral, the granules. We also have a system designed for conditioning of the granules to whatever properties that we need to the exact specification that we want. And we have got options to have this conditioner depending on the molecules, which can be just fitted onto the integral, and that continues to give you the necessary control on moisture, sizing, etc. So these are a couple of views. So this dimension that you're seeing here, about 5 meters by 2.5, is a typical, let's say, about 200 kg per hour output of metformin kind of throughput that we're talking about. So it doesn't occupy much space. These layouts are variable. So what we are showing is here as a L shape can be done straight or anything. These are modular designs, so it can be customized, configured to be based on availability of space that you have. So what are the other key things that Integral offers to the operation production people? So processing time, the time for which the granules are made in a batch process, if we compare it with a continuous process, it's in seconds now, because the granule passes through the entire length of the processor in probably maximum of 30 seconds is the time that it takes. That means we have got a better controllability. The number of unit operations are minimized, as Indu showed in the first chart. Several batch processes starting from blending, feeding, shifting, then using the fluidized bed granulator, and then again shifting. All these are combined into a single step process almost. Thereby, overall number of unit operations are reduced, which results in lesser manpower, lesser energy, lesser time, and puts lesser stress on the system as a whole. This production people will be able to reciprocate with us easily. Of course, the cost of manufacturing of the granules through Integral is substantially lower, which we will explain in the next section. Footprint, we have seen it's going to be much smaller in space as compared to a traditional system. Quality control is by design, and therefore operational issues. Since the quality is controlled at design stage itself, what typically is encountered by production people is that there would be some issues coming during running of the equipment, which has happened because the design was not, the design philosophy was not quality oriented. In our case, in the design stage itself, we are taking care of all the quality aspects. Therefore, we don't see a problem in issues coming up every now and then. Environmental impact is pretty low because of two things. Carbon footprint is lower here. Energy consumption is much lower here. Therefore, environment, it's a greener technology compared to a traditional process. Just moving on to a interesting slide on a typical metformin case, which is just an example and which could be applied to any other molecule as well, where rapid mix granulation is adopted currently as a process. See, what you see on the left hand side is a typical footprint that is needed. Approximately, we can take about 150 kg per hour of throughput here. Typically, this is what currently industry has. About 12 meters by 18 meters is the space that is needed. And we need about 7 to 8 people to run the plant on a continuous basis. And you can see at every stage, manual intervention is needed, right from material receipt to shifting operation, then moving it on to rapid mix granulator, and then moving the entire material again to the fluid bed dryer in this case. And after the fluid bed drying is done, then again we get it to the collection bin, and then one person again carries it to the sifter, and then the downstream process follows. And this is what industry is currently doing in a typical metformin example. It could vary based on formulation, it could vary slightly based on the processes, but largely it's a manual process, right? On the right hand side, what we see is we take out this entire section of FBD, binder preparation, etc. Then we put in the feeding section, we just put the Integral here. So I have just shown this. This is almost to scale. This drawing is almost to scale. So you can actually clearly see that there is at least a 50% reduction of the floor space. And more than that, the number of people who are required to operate drastically goes down, because there's nothing much to do once you start the system here, because it continuously granulates. You don't have to physically again keep shifting any of these in between products that are formed, because everything is controlled in the Integral, and finally you get dried, sized, controlled granules as an output. At this stage only, there is some manual intervention needed to shift it to the blender, and even the blender can be automated. It's not a very tough thing to do. So what we want to convey here is it's a much simpler process, and it's sometimes very difficult to visualize this for a person who's operating a batch process. So this schematic, I believe, would give you a good idea on how simple it will be if it is installed in in your place. And the footprint, OpEx, etc. we have already spoken about. Let's move on. I will briefly touch upon a financial calculation, which again will vary from country to country, place to place, and molecule to molecule. But having said that, we have taken a very popular sort of oral solid dosage form and taken some industrial standards, and we've done very detailed calculations on really what it takes financially, what benefit the customer gets if they adopt to continuous granulation loop. So the technology piece is pretty well covered. The financial incentive is something which we need to really look at, and therefore we did a deeper study. So where does Integral actually add value apart from, let's say, the product superiority, ease of operation? These are something which are definitely there. Apart from all that, the energy, the OpEx that is needed to run a batch process versus the OpEx that is needed to run a continuous process through Integral is extremely different. And we clearly see the cost of manufacturing of a typical oral solid dosage form in the form of tablet actually reduces by at least a minimum of 10 to 11%, which is again a very conservative estimate that we have done. And we can prove to anybody who's operating currently a batch process as to how the continuous process through Integral reduces the cost of operations by 10-11%. And the cost of operation goes down by 10-11%. It is something very, very phenomenal because these are high volume drugs. If you take a high volume drug, this makes a big difference. If you take a specialized molecule, it may not make a very big difference, but still it makes a huge difference in terms of the, when you combine it with the quality aspects, when you combine with batch injections, when you combine it with the value that is realized per volume of volume of the drug, it is going to be still phenomenal. So how does this translate into bottom line and top line? We did a few case studies and calculations. So what I'm presenting here is something which is very illustrative. But when you do this for your company, your company's cost of manufacturing, you would end up more or less similar to what we are showing here. We would love to work with you to define this better. So we have taken a typical tableting, size of about 48 lakh tablets per batch, and let's say about 4 lines are running, which many of the companies in India and abroad are also doing. We have taken some representative sample of that, and we calculated what it really takes, what it really means when the cost of manufacturing reduces by 10%, right? And the numbers are really, really attractive. The operating margins with this kind of running is really shooting up from the current 10-15% to about 30%. Clearly, it's coming out as a winner. And then combine it with, let's say, we want to improve market share by having doubling the capacities or tripling the capacities, very easily possible through a continuous granulation system, because you don't have to do changes of all the batch processes. You have to just resize a few of them and then put a larger size Integral there and then get it commissioned well. I think that's it. With such a very small differential investment, you can actually double or triple your top line. Therefore, so the only uncertainty here, as we speak to many customers, is that, as some of you have mentioned, the fear of the unknown or fear of the technology, etc. Right now, when that risk can be, we know as an original equipment manufacturer, we know the risks are very minimal because we have been doing this for now 5-6 years in terms of analyzing and testing. We are at a stage where we are ready to get inside. And in spite of, let's say, the first year of operation, when you are running the plant with no revenues generated, because you may have to have the FDA approvals done with this line, Steer is willing to support you in that journey. And we don't anticipate major problems there. We expect maybe it should get through in about 5-6 months' time when we put our people there to help you out to get those approvals done. The benefits are too big to ignore, is what I wanted to tell the industry here. It's definitely a time to change for us, and you will get a very attractive payback. And after that, it's going to be really, really competitive costing you will be able to do, and you'll be able to improve your bottom line and top line nicely. With this, we will briefly touch on the different models that we have got. Of course, there are many more models we are developing as we are navigating this journey. So it starts from our lab model. which is a very small integral, 0.9 kilowatt, occupies very less space and 700, 800 kilograms. Again, this throughput depends on the kind of molecule that we are processing, kind of formulation that is being processed, but we have given a typical value here, which will come to the section a little later. So we've got MP2 model, we've got alpha model, which is again the next scale, which can be still deployed at commercial scale for lower throughputs. And then we have got the beta and the gamma. They are very nice looking, nicely engineered machines. Aesthetically, they look good. It's very appealing to the eye when you actually see. We are inviting you to our factory to see many of these models which are available with us. And they really perform very silently. This noise level is much less than 85 decibels at 1 meter level. So it's all adhering to international standards and pharma standards, needless to say. And the gamma that you're seeing currently is capable of also having very, very good industrial scale output with uniform granules and the properties. So just to summarize the whole thing, this table approximately gives you the throughput that is possible through different models of integral. So what you see is in kilograms. So we have, if you run let's take a gamma machine. A gamma machine which is running for 1 hour with the paracetamol can produce 150 kilograms of dried sized granules to you. And the same machine, if it is run with metformin, can produce higher, which is about up to 200 kilograms it can produce. So that's what this table is saying. And we have run most of these paracetamol and metformin molecules plus additional molecules, as Mr. Indu said. And we can, these are all proven numbers with us. And also Gamma Plus is under development, and it's a scaling up is very easy in this technology. So we don't see a major challenge in building a Gamma Plus quickly. And they can really scale up your operations in a very profitable way and with the quality that you need. With that, I will move on to move the presentation to Mr. Indu to take us forward on the case studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh, for the wonderful insight about the value proposition to a customer, whether it is production or quality or R&D. Thank you. So now I will go through quickly with the two case studies. In front of us is a wet granulation for metformin immediate release. This is traditionally a high volume product prepared every day in tons, and therefore we tried it in early days. Typically, it is produced at shop floor as 95% weight by weight granules or granules for compression. So we used in binder PVP 5% of the total weight of the granules. And if you see the system, again, Integral has agglomeration zone followed by drying, sizing, and the discharge. And the dried granules was then characterized for particle size that is given in the table on the left-hand side. And we also checked granules properties. Looking at both the tables, what we see, granules has unimodal distribution. It met our customer requirement of particle size distribution. On the right-hand side table indicates how good the flow is, and that is indicated by Carr index and Fresnel ratio, which indicates excellent flow properties with LOD approximately 1.3%. So these are typical attributes of granules produced by Integral for a wet granulated product. We also went for tablating these granules, and we wanted to see how the performance of the finished product, which is tablet, how it looks. That also met with the specification very well within the specification. And DT, many times people ask how it is going to affect the DT, because still the world sees a twin screw granulation process as a high shear process. We have come out with that paradigm, and we have umpteen number of case studies where we can tune it for a high shear to a very low shear or no shear, even as evident in fluid bed granulation. So depending on the customer requirement, without changing any qualitative or quantitative composition, Integral provides great ability to process material without any change in composition, whether it is qualitative or quantitative. That's one thing which became very clear in last 2 years during our trial. And we can even go to match the final product performance, which is clearly evident in the table in front of us. We also looked into the morphology, and as Rajesh was talking about, we basically compared it with the traditional lobe, which is integer lobe. And there we saw that twin screw granulator typically produce a flaky, and probably because of these reasons, no control in the process. When we started journey, we saw a lot of reluctance and apprehension in the mind of people. How can a twin screw granulator will work for so many difficult product and high volume product? But on the other side, when we started using fractional loop processor Integral, we saw that it provides great ability to customize as per customer need, composition, and the specification of final product. So the picture on the right-hand side clearly indicates that FLP produces much more uniform and much more symmetrical granules with excellent flow properties and compressibility. Now moving to another example, and that again is related to metformin, but this time we use melt granulation approach because as I said earlier, Integral can also be used for a continuous melt granulation process, which today I do not see many other options available. So in this case, we used metformin. We used a low melting lipidic material, glycerine bainate, 10%, for binding as well as release control. And as you must be aware, metformin release control in many cases are controlled by HPMC, high viscosity grade. In our case, it was HPMC K100M. What we did is we have not used any liquid for granulation. We melted glycerine bainate. We put a blended material in intake zone, followed by melt agglomeration, primarily by glycerine bainate, followed by cooling, sizing, and discharging from the processor. The cooled size granules was further characterized, and then what we did is we compressed into tablet. And tablet properties are given on the right-hand side table. And whereas the dissolution profile is given on the right-hand table and tablet is on the left-hand side. What we see is tablet properties excellent for ER product with a hardly any I would say big mass. 650 is a reasonable tablet weight with a thickness of 5.3 to 5.5 and a reasonable hardness of 60 to 80 Newton and a friability less than 0.5, well below the stipulated 1% level. At the end, we also evaluated for USP test, and what we found that the compressed tablet was compliant to the stipulated USP specification. Now it's time for polling number 2. And in this question is, what according to you should STEER do to make the industry adopt quickly to continuous granulation? You have 2 minutes time and Swaroop is going to open the poll. Please answer in the chat box and we are waiting for your response. Thank you for your response. What we see is very interesting response, and many of them are related to ANDA demonstration trial, how we are going to support in customer filing. These are very relevant points, and I thank for the response. Yes, today's tier is absolutely prepared for demo trial. What we need is material from your side and couple of trial before we demonstrate to set the process. So we have application development center and customer experience center in-house, where we'll invite all our customer to see how integral process works for your product. So thank you for the response. And now we move to polling question number 3. And the question to in front of you is, what according to you are the top 2 things that come to your mind after this webinar on Integral? Please provide your response in the chat box in few words, and you have time 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll wait for your response eagerly. Top 2 things. Thank you for the response. What I see clearly emerging out is many people are looking for productivity related question. As Rajesh captured in his part about the value proposition to customer, yes, productivity is multidimensional. It is related to cost. It is related to convenience. It is related to even quality of the product. So Integral addresses all of them, as you have seen during Rajesh when he presented it, and we will be happy to demonstrate it to our customer whenever you need it. We have application development center, and we are fully prepared to demonstrate that.
Yeah, just to add on to what Indu says, I mean, productivity is extremely important, and Integral brings a sea change in the way we operate and we consume energy in this process. So that has to be seen to be believed. So we would really invite every one of you to visit us and see the lab here and see the machine in operation and see the equipment system in operation. And then some of you have also asked about how do we support you in regulatory filing. So we have got different modes of engagement with customers. So we would be very happy to work with you to get this organized in the future. So we are very open to do this and get the technology adopted in the industry. And some of you also mentioned conduct more trials. Yes, we have been doing a lot of trials since many years, and therefore we have matured this technology currently to a level where we are ready to get into the market. And so really, I want the people here to adopt and grab this opportunity quickly and to really make a change in the way you run your businesses. Looking forward for engaging with all of you. And with that, I think we have come to the end, but we have got questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Indu and Rajesh. That was a very insightful session on the benefits of continuous granulation and how this indeed looks like the future of drug manufacturing. I now open the forum for question and answers. Kindly drop in your questions in the chat box and our experts will address them.
Yeah, so we have seen some questions already coming in, so we can just look at some of those questions and
Can you read some questions?
Yes. So there's a question from Dr. Rahul. Is machine availability for R&D trial on FOC basis?
Yeah, so basically we are doing a lot of trials with customers, and therefore we are extremely encouraging you to do a trial with us for a molecule. So we would definitely like to engage with you we call it as a continuous process development, and we would really look forward to engage with you, Dr. Rahul, on developing some molecules and processes for you. Commercials can be, of course, discussed at any point of time. So that should not be a limitation to adopt to this technology or development of the product, is how I would put it. You are always welcome to engage with us further.
Another question is from Venkatesh. Can the equipment do uniform pellet? The answer is Integral is designed for granulation, not for making pellet, which is uniform in size. However, what we saw that the granules produced by Integral is much more spheroidal and symmetrical, but not completely, you will see, spherical. Whereas for spheronization, you use a different technique, which is like extrusion followed by spheronization. So you may take these granules for spheronization separately, but currently Integral is not designed to produce uniform spherical pellet. But pellet type structure for granulation can be produced.
Yeah. And I would like to take the next question from Dr. Rahul. He has asked any process case study available which shows the comparison between traditional method and continuous granulation process in terms of time and utility consumption. Yes, we have. We have got exhaustive data with us, which compares a traditional process in terms of energy and in terms of utility consumption versus what our Integral consumes. We are more than welcome to share them when you are here or when we are engaging Dr. Rahul.
So any reason why the thickness of the metformin tablet is on the higher side of the specification? Probably due to a small punch than what is desirable to keep it within the specification. So we have not matched the complete specification of the tooling. We used our own tool for making tablets, which might be the reason for producing slightly more thicker tablets.
Yeah, and Parizad has also asked a question there, which is what are the inline and online pad tools employed? And Satish has answered that. And I absolutely concur with Satish there. We have got moisture analyzer. We are working on integrating PSG analyzer, an NIR Raman. So it has got all pad tools can be integrated onto the system. Apart from it, we are also bringing in certain conditioning elements to the whole thing. It will be a self-learning automated equipment with state-of-the-art control systems, Parizad. Thank you for asking that question. Sakar Healthcare, somebody has asked, what is the minimum and maximum capacity for a lab model? Yeah, as Satish has replied, it can run a few grams to a few kilograms. Yes, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
I would say from 1 kg to 10 kg, we have a lab scale processor, which is MP2 to alpha.
Right. We are just scanning the questions further. I think we have got a question. Can you comment on the equipment validation and process validation? I think Parizad has asked this question. So
yes. So very, very interesting question and very good question. Yes, validation is absolutely, I would say, much more easier than the batch process. As Rajesh was talking about, we have ability to take sample both time and mass stratified. So this processor allows you to take sample from time to time and from mass to mass. Those sample can be analyzed to verify the performance of the processor from start till end. And as in traditional process, you have to take three different consecutive run to verify the performance of the processor for generating or creating granules. So absolutely possible, much more easier. Our own experience with our first AND is, in fact, we took 9 runs and we have not seen any deviation in the 9 run. Rather than taking 3, we went on for taking 9 runs, and all of them for a very large runtime of 40 hours each. We have not seen even a single point deviating from the validation range.
Thank you, Indu. There's another interesting question. Please provide the trial batch feasibility location in India. We do it in our Bangalore facility. We have got an application development center for pharma and for the applications. So the integral tests are done here. So you're more than happy to visit us or send us the samples. We would be setting up the DOE for you, and we can run the trials in Bangalore within the shortest possible time. Mr. Venkatraja, thank you for that question. Yeah, I think there are, okay. Yeah. We're just scanning through some more questions. There are, let's see. Somebody asked, is there a machine installed in India? And if the machine is installed, is there any chance of getting a trial batch of our product in this equipment? I would partially take this question and then pass it on to you. In terms of trial batch, you can take a trial batch from our machines which are available in our place in Bangalore. The option is available, so we can help you to get your trial batch done in our facility in Bangalore. And for the question on machine installed in India, I think
yes, our first installation was for a high volume API in 2020. But I don't think those customer will allow, because of confidentiality, to see those equipment. Once we close our transaction, it's an asset of that company. However, similar equipments are available in our own site for taking trial and experiencing how the trial goes.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Let me just see.
Any case study or?
No, any process case study available which shows the comparison. I think this we have addressed. So one remark we are seeing from Mr. Jayendra Reddy is continuous granulation is a too much investment which can't be given at competent price in the market. Now we beg to differ here. We can offer a very, very attractive scheme where the capital cost, although on an absolute number, it may look on the higher side, but the return on investment is going to be less than 1.2 years, even without realizing any revenue in the first 6 months. So our data clearly shows that, and therefore we can help you to get your return on investments as early as possible with continuous granulation. It is not a, it's not a too much of investment at all. Although in absolute numbers, it may look like that, but then you're going to get back this money very, very quickly. So that's how we approach it. And we can engage with you, Mr. Jayendra Reddy, and we'll prove that to you in our next sessions. Yeah. Someone has asked API property and its BioWaiver. Maybe is it
BioWaiver?
Yeah.
So yes, we can attempt for BioWaiver when the molecule is more soluble or highly soluble and permeable. For those BCS class 1, definitely any change, or even if it is a major change, we can argue or we can justify saying that BioWaiver is applicable. Yes, API, any API, I would say water soluble, water insoluble, heat meltable, those are all possible in integral processor. So please try, and we are happy to demonstrate those product or API for a granulation trial. So Integral has no limitation in terms of type of API, whether it is soluble, insoluble, meltable. So it is fit for all.
Yeah. So with that, we'll take the last question. I think it's by Mr. Shivakumar Patil. Processing time and cost of equipment and space required. I think this we can take it up with you with a specific requirement of yours. So the processing time, of course, is much reduced when compared to batch. Cost of equipment, the capital cost and the operating cost put together, when we look at it, it's going to be very attractive. Space is, of course, 50%, less than 50% of what we need it for conventional systems, and we can provide you all the details when we start engaging deeper, Mr. Shivakumar. Thank you for that question, and I think we have covered most of it. For some of the questions which we are not able to cover, we will address it offline when more questions come in. And yeah, with that, we over to Soru. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh and Indu sir. That was a very insightful session. I once again thank all the participants for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and engagement and for providing some of very insightful answers for the poll questions, and gives us a deeper understanding of what the market pulse is with respect to the continuous granulation. Also, if you have any follow-up questions or feedback or comments, please feel free to reach out to any of the experts, the contact details of which are mentioned on your screen. They'll be more than happy to get back to you. We hope to see you at some of our other upcoming webinars and engage with you even further. For now, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.